Hidden in the mountains of Serra da Lousã lies a village built entirely from stone, Silveira de Baixo. Today, only the ruins of the houses remain, but as you walk through the narrow streets, you can only wonder how people lived here. Before modern life, before machines, before the time we cannot imagine anymore. In this episode, Manuel will take us through this abandoned schist village, how people lived, why they left, and how the knowledge of working with schist is still alive today. Before we can imagine the future of this village, we need to understand its past.
This was once a thriving village and now it's abandoned. It was essentially a village where people farmed and lived on subsistence agriculture. Main material was the schist stone, this stone right here, with which they built their houses and their walls, their terraces, so that they could farm on them because the inclinations here are very steep. And in this mountain range you have terraces that go from the base of the mountain up to the top, which is an insane human undertaking. This is a ruin that's a perfect example of how people used to live back in the day. So you've got a lower floor and an upper floor. You can see that it has two levels. The level below was for the animals, for them to sleep. And then above, the family inhabited. The animals provided a very important thing in the winter, which was heat. So the heat that they would generate would come up. Speaking about heating and cooking, here we have like an amazing, almost intact oven of back in the day. From what I gathered, I mean, I might be saying something really stupid, but I haven't seen chimneys on them or like holes for the chimney. So you can guess that it was used as an oven and also a heat source. And probably not a very healthy one, because then the smoke would come all inside the house, but like that's how people lived back in the day. So these villages were abandoned by several factors. Like it all started in the dictatorship in the beginning of the 20th century. So these villages, these lands within the village and around, they were mainly agriculture. And then outside they were called like common land. The families of the villages that had goats and sheep, they would go with the animals to those common lands. And in the early 20th century, the dictatorship, like they took away the common land from these villages to plant pine trees. And so they got they lost a very considerable source of their income, which was wool and milk and meat from those animals. And so that's when the real exodus started from these villages. Then like the dictatorship, very harsh conditions here while the cities were developing, opportunities elsewhere in the world, like all of that combined made it so that like families from this village went to Lausanne on the foothills of this mountain, went to Lisbon or Brazil, Argentina, Canada, United States. Like they went all over the world in search of a better future, because here like most people didn't have shoes. You only ate what you could plant, and if you had a bad crop here, you would definitely be hungry. Material wealth was like almost non-existent, and so people like didn't really have a purpose here. And then with the other developments elsewhere in the world, with the rise of the automobile and like people knowing that other places were wealthier and with better conditions of achieving a good life, like they abandoned these places, right? That's basically the story of this place. That's how it got abandoned, and now it can either go into the abyss of memory and time, or it it can get a new life, and that's why we are here. We fell in love with this place, and we want to revitalize it, but not make it a carbon copy of what it was before, because what it was before made people leave. So we want to respect the tradition, but give it a new life, and with modern comforts and with the modern way of life, right? Aha! Sorry for interrupting. We just partnered with Idleforest, so if you don't have the funds to support us, but you still want to be a part of this regenerative project, you can now go to the link in the description and download their Chrome extension and desktop app, which sells your idle internet bandwidth, so your computer doesn't get slower, your internet connection doesn't get slower as well. They don't track any websites you visit or anything that you do. They just take the idle internet bandwidth that you have, and then they sell it to their customers. And with that, they support regeneration projects like Silveira Tech. They're a very interesting partner, very cool people, and we thank them a lot for partnering with us. They've been a donor of the project since the early beginners, and they're awesome. So shout out to Idleforest. And if you want to help us out, go to the link in the description. You have all the information there. Oh, that's right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give us high points, and comment. See ya. Not to make this all about abandonment, like these villages had stories that I think it's important to tell and to preserve, and we will do our best to do that. We can also see that on the land. So for example, here there's what appears to be a terrace that was used for drying wheat and other cereals that they planted. And there's trees that tell us about love stories, or the beginning of them, and which we will go see now. Yeah? Let's go. This is from our drone seeding. Previous episodes, you can check the seeding that we did, and like now the village is full of this rye, right? It's rye, which is amazing and gives it such a beautiful color. This is a very old cork tree. It's very sturdy. Survived the fire, as you can see from its sprouting. And it's very interesting because a few years ago I had an old guy here. He was one of the last inhabitants of the villages in these mountain ranges, not this one in particular. And he would come as a young boy to the village party here. And he said so that the old young boys would come and climb this cork tree in the evening or at dusk. And they would look at the girls over there. And they would stay very quiet to listen to them talk about the boys. So like this was their picking tree, and it's a story that it's interesting to preserve about how everything here, even a tree, has a story about the people that inhabited this village. For us, this village is not just ruins. By looking at it, we can actually understand how people lived back in the day and like how they inhabited the place, which is very interesting. And schist was the natural stone, they're predilect for building these houses and terraces, and it's what creates these beautiful colors and structures.
Isso é ninguém quer trabalhar nisto. Isso um muro de barroca é diferente. Em casa não posso ser feito assim. O meu pai já sentava preso, mas não era dele. O meu trabalho mesmo verdade. O meu verdadeiro trabalho que eu aprendi, tinha 14, 15 anos, é gesso, estocador. estive em França, mas andava no gesso empador. Apareceu esse trabalho, quando vim de lá, e vim para cá. É por isso a gente queria fazer. A estrutura desse é isto. Está a ver isto?
Sim.
Vem aqui. E eu chego aqui, ponho a altura desta, depois ponho uma pedra a cortar, porque é duas, é uma pedra, duas, uma. Isto é tudo uma lógica. Os antigos faziam isto e não havia mais nada, e eles faziam. Isto, e tu for ver as casas velhas,
Eles usavam o que em vez de cimento? Era
barro,
barro.
sim. E quem tinha dinheiro usava cal.
Silveira de Baixo may be abandoned, but it is not disconnected from the present. The houses still teach, the paths still guide, the stones still hold memory. And in the hands of those who still know how to work with it, this knowledge continues. Before we rebuild anything here, we need to understand what was already built and why. This village is not only a place we are restoring, it is a place we are learning from. As always, thank you for being here. And join our Patreon. Help us regenerate this mountain. See ya and take care.